This is Meghan Markle's sickest stunt yet.
She's walking around Paris like she's the
They said Paris would be her rebirth. The cameras were ready, the lights rehearsed, and every headline had the same script. Meghan Markle returns. Stronger, freer, untouchable.
I know my latest money-making scheme is going to be cosplaying the final night that Princess Diana died. It's truly sick.
But when she stepped into the Balenciaga show, something cracked. The room didn't rise, it recoiled.
But when she stepped into the Balenciaga show, something cracked. The room didn't rise. It recoiled. Silence replaced screams. Flash bulbs pop, but not for her.
How are you protecting children when you were promoting a brand that was accused of inappropriate behavior towards them?
It wasn't a comeback. It was an autopsy. Every smile looked painted on. Every movement rehearsed one time too many.
Meghan is doing her own thing. Harry, go whatever with you. I'm doing what I want.
The woman once hailed as a modern icon now faced an audience that had already moved on.
Meghan is using everything for publicity.
Just another appallingly tone-deaf.
Fashion insiders whispered it like a curse. She's playing a role no one believes anymore.
Especially when he's on the BBC saying that it's not safe enough for my family in the UK, but it's safe enough for Meghan to be alone in Paris, literally engaging with the paparazzi you say killed your mother.
Behind the glass and velvet ropes, the whispers sharpened into knives. Crews called her perfume panic in a bottle. Makeup artists spoke of foundation covering exhaustion, not glamour.
Harry and Meghan will likely have their titles stripped. I think they should have their titles stripped. What is she doing for the monarchy? She's going to fashion shows with this horrible outfit, which looks like a bed sheet. Looks like she's wrapped in toilet paper.
Have you ever seen that video? No. Pull that video up.
It doesn't work for you to shoulders back, breasts out, headlights going, and try to look as bitchy as possible.
One stylist murmured, "You can retouch an image, but not a reputation." Paris didn't destroy her. It revealed that the empire had already collapsed. What was left was performance. The practiced tilt of a chin, the lingering half-smile that once worked now trembling under scrutiny. This wasn't the royal renegade or Hollywood's darling. This was a woman standing inside her own myth as it burned, pretending not to feel the heat. And as the crowd watched in perfect icy stillness, one question hung heavier than perfume in the air. Was this the moment Meghan Markle's illusion finally shattered? It happened in Paris, the Balenciaga showcase, fall season, the city's most guarded runway. Not the chaos of a tabloid red carpet, but a temple of quiet power where gestures, not words, decide who still matters. Meghan Markle was supposed to be seated as a guest of prestige, a symbol of evolution. The actress turned royal, turned global figure reclaiming her space among fashion's elite. But whispers began long before the doors open. Invitations were delayed. Her glam team arrived late and the house itself silent. Industry observers noted what insiders already knew. This wasn't a partnership. It was a courtesy, a seat, not a statement.
And she did this all after teaming up with the dodgy child scandal fashion brand Balenciaga during a bizarre trip to Paris.
Balenciaga didn't release official photos featuring her. The brand's page didn't tag her presence. In the language of couture, that silence speaks louder than scandal. A Paris-based stylist who worked backstage described it plainly. "We were told to keep it polite, not promotional." Another insider said the mood was strangely formal, like everyone was watching history end, not begin. There were no smiles from editors, no lean-ins from designers, just a cold professionalism, the kind reserved for guests of the past, not icons of the future. And as the footage spread online, a question followed across fashion circles. If this was Meghan Markle's return, why did it feel like a farewell? Because the truth wasn't in the lights. It was in the silence. A silence heavy enough to suggest something had shifted, something irreversible. But before that, do you think Meghan's Paris appearance was a genuine comeback attempt or just another staged photo op gone wrong? Drop your thoughts below.
Meghan entered this world like it was a Hollywood set, assuming she could rewrite the script, center herself in every scene, and edit out anything that didn't fit her narrative.
4 years, Meghan Markle sold the world a story polished, purposeful, perfected, a story of rebirth after royalty, of a woman rising from the wreckage with elegance as her armor. But Paris ripped that script apart, line by line, under the harshest light imaginable. The official tale painted her as the guest everyone wanted. Yet, when she arrived, the crowd didn't lean forward. They leaned away. The applause, when it came, was thin as paper, a gesture of etiquette rather than admiration. To the cameras, she smiled like a statue trained to perform grace. To the room, she radiated tension that no designer gown could hide. It wasn't hate, it was indifference, and that's far deadlier. In an industry built on worship, indifference is the final exile. The seats around her were filled with relevance. She was surrounded, not celebrated. Her team tried to choreograph the illusion, the subtle wave, the head tilt, the cinematic glance, but the timing was off. Even her pose, once commanding, felt like an echo from a performance long past its closing night. Every frame was supposed to scream comeback. Instead, it whispered collapse. The sparkle had the shine of desperation, the kind that appears when the applause fades, but the spotlight refuses to. Paris didn't boo her. It dissected her. The city that crowns fashion royalty handed her a mirror instead. And in that mirror, the myth cracked, not from scandal, but from silence. Because sometimes the cruelest destruction doesn't come from enemies. Comes from the moment the audience simply stops believing. Why do you think the fashion world suddenly turned cold toward Meghan? Was it jealousy, fatigue, or something deeper? Let me know in the comments.
Did you see this moment right here? It was almost as cringe. She thinks something is funny. It clearly isn't. Turns to Marcus Anderson, her gay BFF who's behind all of this, wanting him to join in. He's like, no way. Just turn around. Behave. I've got this gig for you, you stupid woman. Just behave. And then she's furious.
Behind the runway silver curtains, the story changed. The cameras captured poise, but the crew saw panic. Makeup artists moved like medics, repairing a look that never settled. Assistants whispered about mismatched tones, smudged fabric, and perfume thick enough to drown nerves. The image was flawless from far away. Close, it was unraveling. Backstage, someone joked. You can fix foundation, but you can't fix that smell. It wasn't cruelty. It was confirmation. The kind of gallows humor that leaks out when perfection collapses under pressure. Stylists muttered about missing garments, about pieces borrowed, not designed. Rumor had it only one pair of heels had been set aside for her. The rest borrowed, tagged, and to be returned by morning. In the language of couture, that's humiliation dressed as hospitality. To the insiders, the message was unmistakable. She wasn't amused. She was a guest on borrowed glamour. And the fashion world, polite to her face, had already moved on. Then came the drive. The tunnel no one expected her to enter. The Pont de l'Alma, where Diana's life ended and a myth began. Witnesses say she filmed there. Her team claimed coincidence. But coincidence doesn't linger. Coincidence doesn't frame itself for symbolism. For an audience raised on royal echoes, it felt deliberate. A reenactment of tragedy, not tribute. And that moment twisted admiration into discomfort. The contradictions piled higher, condemning the media's cruelty while partnering with networks built on it, preaching privacy while chasing lenses across continents. Each move felt choreographed, not for authenticity but for attention. And by the end of Paris, the whispers grew louder than the applause. Because nothing collapses faster than a brand built on sincerity. Once people sensed the performance, Paris didn't just expose a moment, it exposed a pattern. What unfolded on that runway wasn't failure by accident. It was the inevitable end of a performance stretched too thin. Every brand, every speech, Every carefully staged interview had been constructed like a house of mirrors, each reflection brighter than the truth behind.
Finally, Meghan Markle turns up at Paris Fashion Week, fancying herself to be kind of budget Angelina Jolie.
Wow.
But without the talent or the tits or the teeth. I mean, I think she fancies herself to be a bit of a catwalk model, more like an aged pussy. Woof. On the prowl, looking for it.
Her rebrand was supposed to be Rebirth. The humanitarian, the mogul, the visionary. But every new title came wrapped in a press release, not in purpose. Staff described confusion, endless revisions, vague instructions, energy spent on optics instead of outcomes. Meetings about impact ended with talk of lighting, wardrobe, and camera angles. Behind the words authenticity and voice, there was choreography. Behind every photo, control. The message was always there, polished, rehearsed, perfect, until the illusion finally ran out of oxygen. Paris was the breaking point because it removed the buffer of sympathy. There, no tabloid villains existed to blame, no royal court to frame the narrative. Just a woman alone in couture surrounded by professionals who didn't need her approval, only her punctuality. And for an industry built on aura, hers flickered. Insiders said she tried to channel Diana's softness, the Queen's discipline, Hollywood's glow. But the combination blurred into something else entirely, a collage of borrowed personas that never formed a whole. That's why Paris mattered. It wasn't the end of a fashion show. It was the end of belief. The moment the industry that once cheered her turned clinical, watching her myth dissolve in real time. Because in the world she once commanded with sympathy and spectacle, admiration isn't inherited, it's earned. And for the first time, Meghan Markle wasn't being watched as an icon. She was being studied as a cautionary tale. If Meghan really filmed near the Diana tunnel on purpose, was that tribute or manipulation? Be honest. What's your take?
And then you see her naked feet crisscrossed in front of her, like the world is at my feet. Ha ha ha, this is so fun. This is where my children's grandmother died. Good times. Let me put this online.
When the Paris lights dimmed, the industry didn't debate, it decided. Within 48 hours, PR desks stopped returning calls that once rushed to collaborate. Editors described her as no longer essential. The soft phrase that means no longer sellable. Fashion houses track sentiment like currency, and hers had plummeted. Not from scandal but saturation. The mystery was gone. Every appearance felt like a rerun. The same expressions, the same symbolism, the same storyline wrapped in diminishing returns. In a world addicted to novelty, Meghan had become yesterday's headline wearing tomorrow's dress. Behind closed doors, producers whispered about her brand fatigue. One publicist admitted off record, "We can't market contradiction forever." Another said, "Brands now choose silence over association, not out of animosity, but risk control." Even the press, once her megaphone, turned pragmatic. Columns that once romanticized her independence now analyzed her metrics. Engagement down, interest cooling. The algorithms that once crowned her queen had moved on to fresher faces and louder scandals. Harry's presence, once her emotional shield, only deepened the optics of drip. A prince without a palace, a celebrity without a cause. Together, they looked less like revolutionaries and more like exiles of their own design. Industry veterans summed it up in one brutal phrase. She mistook curiosity for loyalty because attention isn't affection, and Paris proved it. The applause that night wasn't celebration. It was closure, a collective acknowledgement that the performance had run its course. In fashion, silence is never neutral. It's a verdict delivered in whispers and absence. And when the doors closed behind her, the world didn't boo. It simply looked away. When fame begins to fade, it doesn't disappear overnight. It fractures one reflection at a time.
It was just a terrible look. She does not look good. It looks like something you would see at a grandma's, like, you know, if she's celebrating her, let's say, 60th wedding anniversary, that's what a grandma would wear.
I think when I was 30, if I thought about 50, I thought that is an awful long way away. And I don't really need to think about it. And then I blinked and I'm 50. That's crazy.
For Meghan Markle, Paris was that shatter point. The moment when reflection and reality finally stopped recognizing each other. Those closest to her described the quiet shifts first, longer silences in meetings, restless demands for new angles, an obsession with control disguised as composure. Staff members said she spoke in headlines, not sentences. Every conversation circled back to image, as if authenticity were just another strategy to test. Behind every appearance, there was rehearsal. Behind every smile, calculation. She wasn't performing for the crowd anymore. She was performing for the mirror, convincing herself the spotlight still belonged to her. And that mirror became merciless. It showed every borrowed gesture. The soft hand wave once Diana's. The stoic pause modeled after the Queen. The designer drape echoing Hollywood royalty. One by one, the copies turned against her, exposing what had been missing all along. A self unfiltered by ambition. The pressure to remain extraordinary left no room to be real. And when admiration turned quiet, she mistook the silence for betrayal, not consequence. Every fading headline felt like an injustice. Every honest critique a personal attack. Insiders recall her team rewriting narratives faster than truth could catch up. Projects reshaped, promises revised, meaning stretched thin until nothing authentic remained. Paris didn't just mark the fall of influence. It revealed a woman trapped inside her own reflection, terrified of what she'd become when the applause stopped. Because the real tragedy wasn't that the world stopped watching. It's that she no longer knew who she was when it did. Maybe Paris was never about fashion. Maybe it was a mirror, one she could no longer escape. The cameras didn't capture cruelty.
Our children, our two Lily, are just 6 and 4 years old. Luckily, still too young for social media, but we know that day is coming.
Now, Meghan, the actress, of course, had to stick to the script. And so we had the hilarious, she's trying to talk about the need to protect children from social media, even though she's pimping out her own children wherever she can, causing these.
For the first time, the myth stood still long enough for the truth to step forward. What we saw wasn't sabotage. It was self-destruction in slow motion. A performance rehearsed until it became hollow. The woman who once commanded empathy now looked consumed by the very machinery she built to protect herself. Diana's light was born from compassion. Meghan's glare came from control. One opened hearts, the other measured optics. And that difference, invisible to fans, unmistakable to insiders, drew the line that Paris refused to cross. When the applause faded, the truth settled like dust. Fame borrowed from sympathy eventually expires. You can't build legacy from imitation. And you can't demand authenticity while scripting every frame. Paris didn't destroy her. It revealed there was nothing left to destroy. Only layers of strategy peeled back until emptiness shone through. Maybe the official story is true. Maybe it isn't. But here's what can't be denied. Paris exposes pretenders. It delivers attention without affection, spotlight without warmth. And in that light, performance becomes punishment because every act ends the same way. The costume comes off, the audience goes home, and the silence tells the truth. After Paris, do you think Meghan can ever rebuild her image? Or is the illusion finally broken for good? Drop your opinions below. If you want to see how deep this pattern runs, watch our previous investigation about Meghan's first husband, Joe Giuliano, reveals why his family rejected Meghan. It's a story that doesn't just connect the dots, it completes the picture. You're watching Star Spotlight,